This is a new day for me to learn in my life on the Don Capi Show with Ankur Garg as my guest
What's up, bro?
today. What's going on, brother?
Things are going good, man. I'm in Miami.
Yeah.
I can't complain. I'm out of Jersey for a couple days. It's nice.
You're out of Jersey for a
Yeah.
couple of days? Yeah. When you left Jersey, did you drive by the giant dump that they have there, or?
If we're referring to my favorite football team, then I did have to drive by it because going to Newark Airport, you do see it.
Yeah, you do see it
But,
every time. Yeah.
I don't really like to refer to them as the giant dump.
Uh-huh.
And if we're referring to the trash island,
Yeah,
that's actually Staten Island. That's New York. That's not Jersey.
Yeah.
Wrong state.
Yeah. That's Jersey is definitely an interesting place. I went to an event there one time for SBC, like a big gaming convention. It's cool. I like the city. You like the city?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's the greatest city in the entire
Yeah.
planet.
You spent a lot of time there with your work that you do and your business model.
I mean, I spent time there when I wasn't even of age to sneak into bars.
Yeah.
As a DJ and as a patron of the nightlife culture.
Yeah.
And then it's one of those few cities in the world that no matter every time you drive in and you see the skyline, it never fails to amaze you.
It never does.
It's so perfect.
Kind of like the Miami skyline. Sometimes I drive over that bridge. I drive over the causeway, or I drive on Venetian just to look over and see it, because it is a pretty skyline. But I guess first question for you: New York City skyline or Miami skyline?
New York.
All the way.
All the way.
It's beautiful.
I mean, the Miami skyline is still getting built.
Yeah.
Isn't all this construction going on? Half these buildings aren't even finished.
They're not even finished. They just finished the Aston Martin building, which is very, very impressive. It looks exactly like Stark Tower. I think that's what they built it off of. The Avengers Tower.
It's directly blocking the view from my apartment. From my hotel room of the water.
Yeah.
It's just like right in front of me.
Did you complain?
No, I don't think I can. I don't think I have enough clout in Miami to be like, hey, move this building over a couple blocks.
Not yet, but
we'll
one
see.
day very soon you will. So Ankur has an amazing background in marketing, digital marketing, really connecting brands with influencers, and that's part of the reason why he's here today, because I'm building my brand and he wanted to come on the show. So just as an opening, if you do have a show or you do have something that you're working on in the influencer space, definitely there's a conversation to have here. So tell me more about how you got into your space and kind of like the beginnings of your origin story and how you did that.
So have you ever been to a club?
Yeah, a couple times.
And
Yeah.
when you get to the club, you're like, the promoter's like, say my name at the door.
Yeah.
And then that promoter gets like $2.
Yeah.
And then you get like to sit at the promoter table or whatever happens.
Yeah.
When social media kind of started off with Twitter and Facebook, everything was text-based, right? As soon as image posting started becoming prevalent with Facebook, and then Instagram was in its nascent stages, my group of friends and I were just like, hey, let's take advantage of this opportunity to use imagery to drive people to make some type of attribution claim to the people that are seeing that content. And I mean, it's a little crazy to say out loud, but I kind of feel like I invented social media influencers.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of attribution, segmentation in your audience, and tracking that, hey, this blonde chick holding this shaker cup brought this traffic to a website. And then the conversion model of taking that landing page and making that same blonde chick that you saw on social media to be the girl on the landing page kind of was our claim to fame. But you wanted to know my origin story, not why I'm famous.
No, yeah, but they're the same thing in reality. It's the same story.
My origin story is very different.
Okay.
You ever seen Slumdog Millionaire?
Yeah.
The guy who just like had this life experience.
Was that about you?
It wasn't about me. I didn't grow up in the slums.
Okay.
My parents are going to disown me if I try to claim that I grew up in the slums. My mom was a city girl. My dad was from one of the more rural areas. But my dad got a college degree and was ready to come to America. And so at that time in India, they had arranged marriages, and it was like prevalent and everything that was going on in the culture. And so my parents somehow ended up getting hitched through an arranged marriage. And, they had me in India, and it was a true Lion King moment where, they raised me up to the sky and they're like, Simba, like the way I feel about this monster drink right now.
Yeah.
Was like, we have to bring Simba or Ankur
Yeah.
to America. This is the prince.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was my Eddie Murphy moment, right? Coming to America. Came over when I was 10 months old. I got the polio vaccine to prove it on my arm.
Wow.
And I feel like growing up, it was just all about books. learn what you can about books and be as smart as you can, get straight A's. But that's the immigrant lifestyle, right?
Yeah, and that immigrant mentality, I was very ingrained with that at working at Valuetainment with PBD. It was a big part of it was his immigrant mentality, and he pushed a lot of that, throughout the journey there. And there were a lot of moments where he would speak to the team about his ideology and how he was raised, and I became very, knowledgeable about that kind of walk, not having to do it, but I heard it over and over and over, and a lot of the people that came into the studio had similar stories about that just hustle to get to the U.S. It's like the real American dream today is being realized by immigrants coming to the U.S. and with this picture of the American dream, almost like manifesting it in their own journey. Whereas a lot of other Americans and a lot of different people that have lived here and grown up here and like families since like 1650, they've given up on that. They had it once when they first came here, but they've given up on that long term.
But here you are.
Yeah.
Aspirational, ambitions.
Yeah.
Trying to manifest this great future with your own brand and everything you're doing with Link Me.
Well, I spent a lot of time in that culture, in that mindset, along with Pat, which definitely before that, I did not have a lot of those aspirations before working for him. My grandfather was a very well-established doctor, PhD guy, MD. He was an oncological radiologist. So I know that he came here with that passion, but I respect it and I see
You just
it.
went from saying 1650 to my grandfather?
Different sides of my family.
Okay,
Different
all
sides of
right,
my
all right,
family.
fair enough.
So I saw a little bit of that hustle on my grandfather's side, being newer through Ellis Island and all of that. But do you think that the immigrant mentality and the conservative nature that your parents brought to the U.S., do you think that played a lot to do with your early success and how you learned how to hustle and work really hard earlier on and still today?
I think the immigrant mentality gave me work ethic.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you come to this country, as my parents did, with nothing to your name and no money, and having to essentially start over with whatever education or life experience you had to that point, there's no plan B, right? Because you can't afford the ticket to go back home.
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so watching my parents hustle and do the things that they did, and then me having 90s music, television, movies, and that whole ideology frame my mindset. This idea of like escape your kismet, right? And kismet is this idea of destiny and trying to break free of the chains that kind of control what the proverbial glass ceiling is going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, I go to college, become a computer programmer, engineer, doctor, whatever. I had these aspirations of wanting to retire by 30 or wanting to retire by 40. And to do that in this country, you have to make a certain amount of money.
Yes.
It's never going to happen working as a 9-to-5 guy. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like a finance bro in New York doing your thing.
Yeah, finance.
Right? Or in the Only Dan's model.
Yeah,
right?
Only
Then
Dan's.
there's hope for us men, right? Only Dan's. Do we need to explain what that is to the
Only Dan's is the male version of OnlyFans that we coined earlier, where it's only guys named Dan are able to be on the platform, and then the rest you can come up with in your mind what they're doing on the platform. But yeah, Only Dan's.
Do you know what name change costs in this country?
How much?
$25. You can change your name to Dan for $25,
and I can be on the platform.
and then you could be on the platform.
Because I applied and my name was Don, and they rejected me.
You should have just said it was a typo.
Well, what I did was, in the entrepreneurship spirit, I started Only Don's platform.
Don,
So
you're the only Don.
I'm the only Don on the platform. Yeah, that's actually this platform right now. It's the Only Don show.
Are you ever going to paywall the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's why I have you here, bro. I mean, I think
I'm the entranceway to
I
paywall.
think you're gonna be an interesting guy for me to learn from long term, and I really want to dive back into your origin story of not so much like the whole background and how you're raised. We'll get into that, but your origin spark moment in when you decided what you wanted to do in media and in advertising and marketing. What was that turn for you? Were you working in logistics somewhere? Like what happened to you?
That's such an interesting question. So, I'm an overachiever, right? My whole life, I've had certain scenarios of this ambition or wanting to have more. So, in school, you would get $1.25 for lunch, and for those of us who are like, well, I really want to get that Nintendo or that Sega Genesis or the game or whatever, you just would skip lunch. You just keep the $1.25 that your parents gave you until you had $20, and then you go get it from the used pile or whatever 6 months after the game came out.
Yeah.
I guess I joined a band as funny as this is.
Yeah, yeah.
And they had, it was the first time I had experienced a fundraiser of like hustling chocolate and realizing that this
Oh, yeah,
chocolate costs 20 cents and we're flipping it for $2 a bar. And I'm like, yo, there's markup, there's margin, there's cost of goods. Like this whole process makes a lot of sense here. And like, what else can I flip?
Because you're Indian, did you understand all of the economics day one? Like when you were like 5 years old, your brain just like kicked it
No,
in?
of course not. But it's
No?
the idea of a lemonade stand, right? It's this
Yeah.
idea of like, hey, for $5, my parents will give me a lemonade stand, but I can make $100 by being cute and standing here and whatever else needs to happen. I don't think I understood the economics of it until probably college, to be honest, right? The terminology and everything that I can now spit out vocabulary wise. But that's kind of all college was. It was good for. It was teaching that terminology. But we can get to that.
Vocabulary,
Yeah.
training, yeah.
So when we talk about flipping that chocolate and realizing that there's money to be made, I had this interesting opportunity to be a tutor because I'm Indian.
Yeah.
There's kids who can't do calculus, but I can do calculus. at
Khan Academy.
6, right? And they would these guys just always wanted weed. And so I figured out that I could flip weed to the people I tutor for.
Yeah.
And I'm too old, right? They can't come after me anymore.
Yeah,
It's legal
no.
now. It's legal, guys.
Legal. Weed is legal.
We should probably say that it was oregano, right? So
Oregano.
Yeah. So I'm just giving these guys oregano. They
Like
love,
The Office.
They love
when,
this stuff.
yeah, when Michael gets sold the oregano. Yeah.
And so I started learning how to flip certain things, and that led to having this business mindset of like, what can I get? What can I flip? And how I can make all that kind of stuff pan out. And that sales-driven mentality is kind of how I've been my entire career. The next spark moment kind of happened when I realized, again, this goes back to the immigrant mentality. I was a year and a half younger than everyone in my grade. Do you know how hard it is to talk to women when you're a year and a half younger than them? It is impossible. In high school, I had no chance.
The older dudes always crushed it. If they were held back, they got held back on purpose. Their dads held them back on
As a
purpose.
sophomore, I couldn't even talk to the freshmen because they were still older than me. I had to wait till I was a junior to be able to kick it to another girl in high school. But the reality is that you go to those high school dances and you see the DJs, and there's all these girls flocking around the DJs. I mean, you know this as a musician.
Yeah.
Like, girls love to flock to the musicians.
Yeah.
So I remember going to my first after party, which I had to like con my parents into allowing me to go to because I'm underage, like in every essence of the word to everyone being there. I go up to the DJs. I'm like, please teach me how to DJ. Right? I just want to learn from you guys and do whatever. What's funny enough is that guy's not my best friend. The guy who taught me. how to
Really?
DJ and everything.
Really?
Yeah, he was my best man at my wedding and everything.
Wow.
But in true entrepreneurial fashion, he was like, sure, I'll teach you how to DJ, but sell these 10 tickets first to my next party or whatever it was. I sold 0 tickets because I had no know-how of how to like really push these types of events or tickets, and I couldn't drive or anything. But slowly but surely as a DJ, I learned that you don't make money by being just the DJ. The clubs and the restaurants, they paid you if you brought the party
Yep.
and brought the crowd. It's no different from musicians, right? If you start marketing it yourself, you get the door cover and like the coat hanger closet. You can get part of that profit share, then the drink,
Yep.
like revenue, everything that comes in. So I downloaded an illegal copy of Photoshop. I taught myself how to graphic design my own flyers, and I started marketing and promoting.
Nice.
And that led to me becoming like kind of really good at being a thief. And I would steal a flyer that I saw out of like a New York club party,
Yeah.
or like a European club party.
Imitation of the other creative work
Absolutely,
done. Yeah.
right? And in Photoshop, there's like 100 ways to do the exact same thing, right? There's different ways to cut, crop, match colors, blend, do all that kind of great stuff. I just had to learn my own way of how I wanted to do it. And I probably became one of the best Photoshop thieves to date that I have ever met, right? That I know what's out there. And once you know how to imitate someone else, I was then able to create my own version of it and my own style, my own creativity. But me learning how to design and have that creative outlet in a way where I could utilize all the lessons from Zach Morris and Laura Winslow from 90s television and apply that to a way that I had the ability to make money, that was definitely the spark.
It's interesting you bring up the whole Photoshop thing and promotion thing because one of the guys that I know talks about his original like start in promotion, Mark Cuban, and a lot of these big guys, I mean, they had some sort of background in promotion because it is like that first place where you can really get that margin up. You talk about flipping chocolate, but then when you have a promotional party, sometimes you walk away with 20, 30 grand. Like my friend's Peter and Nelson out of Fort Lauderdale. They run all the spring break promotions. So Nelson became big in the area because he learned how to do all the flyers. And every time you saw a good flyer, that's the party to go to. And then they started integrating content. And now they have a really big brand locally. They run all the spring break. And I worked with them for the past couple of years, just helping with promotions. We had like 20, 30 girls on our team giving out bands and stuff like that for spring break, which was, I have a lot of girlfriends from that. They're super cute and super great.
How many girlfriends?
Just a few, like a few. When these girls are really just like my friends, I would say. Like they were on my team, and I was like their manager and their leader, and so we built. I kept them away from creepy dudes trying to take them off in the middle of the night, and it changed my opinion on women that whole phase. But the promotional thing is very important. But the most important element of the promotion was the Photoshop, because if that wasn't done really well, like I don't know how to do it, but he maximized on that skill set. So
Sure.
let's move into like for advice for like youth or anybody, even somebody that's getting into a career. How did you maximize on that skill set? Was it just hours? Did you focus on it solely? Like maximizing skill sets. Go off on that for a minute.
So I think for the youth, the most important thing is you have to accept the fact that you're going to be trash for the first year of whatever stuff you make, right? It's like this idea of watching Mr. Beast and trying to emulate Mr. Beast. He didn't start off making these amazing videos, right?
No.
His first couple of videos were trash, right? Or you look at Casey, a guy that posts, a massive YouTuber. You have to start somewhere, and you have to get that ball going, and you have to figure it out. My flyers were terrible in the beginning, right? Like almost Microsoft Word documents, right? To just kind of get the stuff going. But at the end of the day, production value comes from experience, learning shortcuts, and having the blessing of time, right? If I knew a party was 6 months away, I had time to figure out how I wanted to put together what 6 concepts I was going to steal or benchmark from to make what my concept was going to look like. Now, I could spit out a flyer in 20 minutes, and it's going to be some next level flyer. But I spent 20 some years of my life being this good, right? Getting to this point where I could do all of that. But people just starting off, like, it's okay to suck. You just got to start somewhere and figure it out from there. And if your first couple attempts fail, don't give up on the idea of what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right? If Mark Cuban gave up on, every time he's knocked on a door and they said no, he wouldn't be where he is.
He wouldn't own the Mavericks if
Right?
if he didn't, and all the different tech companies and Shark Tank, and that is a big part of it. Just sticking with it and making sure that you're focusing. You're not too hard on yourself. You're not inflicting all this crazy self blame of I didn't do this right. And in the beginning, it's really tough because you want to share good things with all of your friends and all of the people that you know. But in sharing that good thing, they can really bring you down and give you doubt, and you can't live out of a place of doubt and fear. You just have to have self-belief that you can continue to get better. But identifying that skill set, right? What you might be good at. Like, how did you identify that you had something that was special in promotion and flyer making? What was the moment that somebody said, oh my gosh, like, you're incredible at this? Was it a party that you threw? One party just blew up one day and people were like, yo, you're dope? Like, how did that happen? How did you know that you were doing on the right track?
So I have a couple of these moments.
Okay.
And they're all different milestones, right? Because it's not a guy, I'm not one of those guys that's like from 0 to million, I had these milestones, right? I hit 9 figures. The types of milestones that I'm going to talk about are kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And my earliest version of this that I remember was everyone that was my competition was making $75 a flyer. And when I started charging $125 a flyer and people were still paying my price, even though I raised the price, I knew I had something.
So you were charging for the flyers to the clubs and promotions as part of the money that you would make off that deal?
Just the design.
Just the design.
Right. And I was charging a premium because I was giving strategy behind what would make the flyer so amazing. I was one of those guys that with a kid, I would hide a butterfly in every flyer I made, and people started doing like the Taylor Swift effect where they're trying to find the butterfly in the next thing.
Wow.
And I kept turning into like this great movement for me in New Jersey and New York and everything I was doing. Later on in life, there were websites that I was building that were getting tremendous amounts of traffic. And I remember there was a website I built, and I don't even know if SEO was like a coined term yet.
Yeah.
But we broke 10,000 visitors in a day for like a local business. And I there was no one in my circles that had done anything like that before. A couple of years later, Shreds happened, and we're going to get into that story, right? Depending on how long the podcast is.
No, yeah.
But there was a moment at Shreds that I was just like, I'm a brown man and I've made it in this country. We were walking we were in Newark Airport about to fly to Miami to meet with someone from like, I think J-Lo's team, because J-Lo wanted to launch her own supplement company. And so it's me and my business partner, and we get to the airport, and a TSA agent, we're about to go through security, sees us in line. And we're flying commercial, right? We're not at that stage yet where we're doing jet life and all that. That happened later. But literally sees us, calls out our names, and like calls us over. And we're like, oh, man, this is going to be crazy, right? People are like, whatever's happening. And he's like, you don't got to wait in line with these guys. He just opens the gate and walks us through. I'm like, I'm a brown man with a beard. I made it. I don't have to walk through TSA at a commercial flight. This is great. This never happened again.
That was the only time.
But it was insane. I was like, oh my God, I'm famous. Like I don't have this is
Why
crazy.
did that happen? Why did they do that for you?
The dude was a super fan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Of your company, of the brand that you built,
and the brands that we had, and who we were on social media. I mean, when you're the guys that are pioneering this ability to create fitness influencers, and you're in any area of fitness, you know who we are. And this guy, I guess he was an aspiring bodybuilder or whatever it was, saw us and was just like, oh, I need to get in these guys' good gracious. I mean, he gave us his phone number, and he wanted to obviously be whatever after the fact.
Yeah.
But as a brown man with a beard, I have clear, I have pre-check, I have global entry. I'm trying to do everything to not be one of the guys that they're like, sir, you've been randomly selected to step into this room. Like, I want nothing to do with that, right? No smoke. I just like, let me through.
Yeah.
So like that was a moment.
That was a moment for you where you knew you were on the real right track, like your God's purpose, like that's where you're going.
No, screw being on the right track. That was a moment where I was like, I fucking made it.
Yeah,
right?
you fucking made it. Yeah.
Like I'm at that spot now where like, okay, I'm almost untouchable. The next couple things that we started doing, we started taking heavier risks, and it all paid off.
Yeah.
But it was because I now. Okay, let me take a step back. There's this concept of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That was one of the moments in my life where imposter syndrome, no matter how small it was eradicated.
Very important moment.
Very important moment.
Yeah.
That's why I think that moment is such a big deal for me. Earlier in my career, I mean, you're a guy who's like doesn't have a six pack, and you're doing supplements and you're doing fitness sales and whatever else. You have a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
It was the day that I got my six pack, and one of the other athletes posted a photo of me. And I got like 7,000 followers because the athlete posted it. I was just like, yeah, I don't have to worry about feeling like I'm a fake anymore, right? I've lost the six pack, but I had it for a couple of years. And it was miserable. Please don't try to have a six pack and be an entrepreneur. It's not great unless you're Alex Hormozy and like, it is what it is.
You're just on a wavelength like he is, man. I'm trying to figure out his wavelength every day, and I don't understand it. I dealt with him very briefly at Valuetainment because I had asked him for a couple copies of 100M offers for Pat and Mario and myself. Interesting thing, he sent me 3, and he wrote in the book in the front like a nice note to me, which I was very grateful for. And then we DM'd for a year and a half until a deal came in to the system through Layla. And technically, through our sales process, that wasn't mine because it was Layla. So somebody else grabbed the deal. It was a $60,000 deal, biggest in Valuetainment history at that time. That got nabbed for me. But I actually ended up telling Alex in word vomiting on a Zoom call the whole story to him. I was like, I probably shouldn't have said any of that, but I did because I just couldn't. I couldn't help it. And so I have had some back and forth with Alex, and he's a cool guy. I mean, he's on a different wavelength with what he's doing in entrepreneurship on social media for sure. And I've learned a lot from him, and I'm very grateful for that. But I want to learn more about that phase, because you both were in the fitness space, and he started in the fitness space with gym launch and things he was doing prior to that. And a lot of very successful people start off in the gym and fitness space because it has heavy promotional concepts, where gym and fitness and supplements are all promotion and marketing, and it's a very high margin product industry to be in. And that's probably why you focused on that too, because we've talked about margins a couple of times. But talk about your experience and history with Shreds, which is very, very cool stuff. Talk about kind of how that developed and how you shifted into the fitness world.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't think fitness was like on my vision board, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna jump into supplements and I'm gonna do this, or what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I
was actually running a smaller marketing agency called Crimson Lab at the time.
Okay.
And I was operating it out of my best friend's nightclub. And, as a DJ, like, this was the dream. Like, right, our boys are going to buy a nightclub. We're going to run it, and so on and so forth. one of the managers was my business partner in Shreds, his fraternity brother.
Mm.
And so my business partner, his name's Arvin, or ex-business partner.
Yeah.
Arvin was on Jersey Shore. He had a 6-episode stint where he was good friends with Mike the Situation, and there's this whole like,
Reality TV does this to people, man.
yeah, it is what
It
it
blows
is.
you up. I love that. So
And
he's
so
Jersey Shore.
he was the reason the big couple on the show, Ronnie and Sammy, broke up, or some nonsense happened in this arc, right? I mean, what's scripted, what's real, who knows? But Arvin had a friend who worked at a different supplement company, and they wanted to kind of create their own supplement line because they were into fitness, the two of them. But they didn't have the experience of like launching a business or creating logos or doing all this other stuff. And through his fraternity brother, who was a manager at the nightclub that my best friend owned, he ended up meeting me, and he drew a logo on a napkin. He's like, "Can you bring this to life?" The next day, I made the Shreds logo and sent it to him, and he was like, "This is amazing. This is exactly what I envisioned. What else can you do?" I'm like, "Bro, I can do everything, right? From websites to creating photo shoots to doing graphics, like whatever anyone needs."
From the promotional side of what you were doing, you built up all those skill sets as a DJ, and you got into from promotion. I really think that a lot of young guys that are good looking guys that really have a lot going on, they're very charismatic, should shift into promotion at some point because it teaches you a lot about business and money flow and dealing with clubs, dealing with entrepreneurs. And that's interesting that you had that kind of arc yourself. But so you develop these skill sets along the way, not really thinking you're going to get into marketing or scaling it to the next level. And then you got an opportunity. Somebody phone your lap. You seize the opportunity. You use your skill sets to get in there, and then Shred starts. And you're with this business partner.
It's a little more nuanced, right? Because as a marketing local agency, I was working with a lot of dentist offices, restaurants, nightclubs, realtors, and you would only make money when people were awake to run the business, right? And I was having equity deals and revenue deals and all these other great concepts that I had, but when I started working with Arvin and doing Shred stuff, I was just a contractor in the beginning, and I started making money while I was sleeping because PayPal doesn't stop working in the middle of the night, and there's people across the world that are still ordering stuff throughout the day. And I remember everything that we were doing in the beginning. It wasn't enough for us to be like, all right, we're going to quit doing anything else and just focus on this. There was a pivotal moment where we decided to go against what everyone else was doing in the world of supplements, which was just focusing on getting into retail, and to shift over to social media and do what we wanted to do with creating influencers and creating content and everything goes with it. And it was all centered around Black Friday, 2012.
Oh, yeah, Black Friday. Right? Yep, I know all about Black Friday with Redcon, yeah.
I remember we up to that point in the year, we did like $9,000 in sales, right? And then we went to sleep and it was like 50 to 60 grand in the bank account. We woke up and there's 87, 90 grand in the bank account. And we were like, all right, we broke the mold. We figured out how to do this. Let's like go full fledged into this. And in 2013, Arvin eventually quit his job where he was working at, and we moved in together into Jersey City, and we just like bootstrapped the whole thing. And along the way, being an ambitious man, right? I'm like, hey, Arvin, give me a cut. And then he gave me some equity, and then I earned more equity along the way. And then eventually we were the majority partners in the conglomerate that we created.
What was your mental process, once again, for young entrepreneurs, what was your mental process getting into the situation of asking for that cut? Because a lot of times that's a big pivotal moment, and if it's handled poorly, it doesn't go well. There's some animosity. Like, what was your mental thinking before you asked for that? Walking into the meeting with Arvin or wherever it was, saying, "Hey, I think I deserve a cut." What did you bring to the table to get that cut and make that happen?
That's such a good question. I talk to these kids all the time now with my coaching stuff, where there's this concept of entitlement. Right, that people have, and they're like, hey, I worked here for 6 months. When am I going to get my shares? Right? It's not result driven asks. All of my asks with Arvin throughout the time period were result driven asks. Hey, I hit this KPI. Hey, we hit these sales. I did everything I was supposed to do. Like, is it time to cut me in? And then when it was time to get a bigger cut, I'm like, okay, I'm at this point where I want to be. What do we need to hit for me to get to this? I can't imagine if you're 9 to 5 and you go to your boss and like, hey, look, I've been really grinding and I want a promotion. right? I'm not asking for it right now. I just want to know, what are you looking for? What is it that I could do to impress you enough to get me to that next level? I can't imagine that any manager wouldn't be like, that's amazing. Give me a day, let me think about it. Or like, this is what I want from you, and then you can come back to me and ask. There's no fight at that point. The answer is
Yeah.
going to be yes, you did it.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, there are some managers that are trash people.
Yeah, I
And
was
they
going
will
to
take
say,
advantage of you. And
yeah.
they're going to never give you that promotion. But you have to be aware enough to get out of there at that point in time, right? And what I would tell anyone who's young and in a situation where, like, hey, I did what my manager said I needed to do. It's been 6 months. I'm not getting where I want to be. You have to set a boundary and be like, hey, listen, you told me to get to this point. I'm going to give this another 3 months or 6 months. And after that, I'm going to bounce if I don't get what I was promised. Now that's not entitlement, right? It's not delusional. You asked for what you had to do. You did it and you didn't get it. Now, if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, then you're a delulu, man. Like,
Yeah, you're
get out of
delulu.
here, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I would say. Now, if you don't know how to identify if a person's a good person or not, get coached.
Get coached.
There's
Yeah.
people out there that'll coach for free, right? There's people that slide in my DM and asking for free coaching, and I'll help anyone, and with whatever questions that they have going on. And I'm sure that the time that we spent together today, I'm sure you could see that I would give valuable advice. to
Oh
these
man,
people in these situations.
every single second, honestly, of our interaction since I picked him up over in downtown Miami has been very valuable to me, and I'm very grateful for it. And I try to live my life in gratitude and tell people that I'm grateful for them. So I'm telling you now on the show, before it even airs, I'm grateful for that. And I could see how everybody could get value out of what you know, and also on the coaching side, because we're diving into some really, really deep stuff about how to shift as a young man or a young woman into entrepreneurship. And so I want to dive deeper into that story more, because I really want to get to the root of some of your experience in the fitness space, because I love that space and I love what you've done, from what I hear. So you negotiate this deal, you get into a piece of it, you then renegotiate and up that. So right around that time, what's going on with Shreds? What are you doing in the company? What are the different roles that are happening? How is the company growing year by year at that time?
So Arvid and I moved in together, and the first floor of our apartment was our office, 2 tables, 1 sofa, a kitchen, and that's it. And upstairs were 2 bedrooms. We literally worked 20-hour days, if not multiple days sprints, to grow the business. I want to say it was early March or late February. We hit our first $1 million in total revenue of the history of the company. We went and had shots of espresso from our Nespresso machine and went right back to work. And the point where we were at, maybe 6 months after that, I kind of came to him, was like, listen, man, I've done everything that I was supposed to do. Like, you got to make me a bigger partner in this, right? This is my whole life at this point. And I know at that point he valued me and what I was doing, and the opportunity at that point was to split the company down the middle. And there was some hair on the deal in how it all went down, but we don't need to get into those details. Right?
No.
You don't know what you don't know, and I never had an opportunity this large until that point. And now I maybe I should have had an attorney involved at that point of the negotiation. But at the end of the day, he and I were the majority partners. We started blowing up the company because all these major fitness influencers were nobodies. And we were creating them from scratch through our model of just blowing up the following. And don't get me wrong, it's not like anyone could have been a fitness influencer. You have to be hardcore dedicated to your craft and to bodybuilding or to aesthetic physique or like fitness or all of that. And you had to live that life. But if you did your part, we then did our part to blow you up.
Yeah.
And, from the different types of athletes that we're working with, the Joey Swole, Paige Hathaway, Hardcore Ainsley right here in Miami, Devin Physique, Colin Wayne. I mean, these are some of the biggest names in fitness.
And they're hard workers.
The hardest workers.
From my experience at Redcon, man, Kai Green's a very good friend of mine. I love Kai to death, and we actually did some music together. It was funny. I brought him into the studio for the first time. We have like 8 tracks that have not released yet because I guess his team is still waiting on it.
Did he sing or did he rap?
He sang.
Kai can sing?
Yeah, he can sing R&B vocals like a beast. And then I would do all of the lead work and lay out the lines and the top line vocals, and then he would hop in and we would write lyrics together. It was fun. But Kai is one of the hardest working people I've ever met when it comes to his craft of bodybuilding. And it shows because he's at the top of the field still to this day. Later on in his career, he's not competing as much as he was before, but seeing that man in the gym is fucking insane. It is nuts what the amount of effort that he puts in and the amount of help that he gives to other people. I've seen him working out with Brian Cage before, who's got an unbelievable physique. I mean, the guy's a pro wrestler, and watching him walk in was just like you were literally watching Wolverine. Like what Wolverine is supposed to look like in the film, not Hugh Jackman, it's Brian Cage. Like that guy is insane. And so I do have some experience with the top people, but then also with the lower end people that are trying to get into the sport, the amount of work ethic and commitment that it takes to bodybuilding day after day. And they do see the brand opportunities. Blessing, the boogeyman, got to witness his journey with Kai kind of as his coach, helping him through a lot of it at Redcon. And it's amazing. So working with these highly dedicated people, obviously it motivated you to get better at your craft along the way too. Sure. But it's always so great to work with other top tier, high level people. And so in your experience working with Shreds, like on the day-to-day conversation with these top influencers and top brands, what was that like interacting with them? Like what did you get out of that experience yourself? And how did that carry over to who you are?
That's an interesting way to word that question. So let's just think Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, right? Like there was a moment in Julia's life where like Richard Gere came around and like showed her this whole other side of the world. There was no PE entrepreneur helicopter landing showing me another side to this. I had to become that person for everyone around me. And so for me, it was leadership training that I had to learn on the fly as I had to like build. Yeah. And when you're going from 10 employees to 20 employees, to 50 employees to 200 employees to 500 mixed with contractors and full-timers and everything that you need to do, then you add the mix of international offices and international taxes and, there's tax nexuses for like sales tax and different things you have to learn along the way. I mean, it was a crash course MBA in real life business. And whether it was a brand that I was talking to or negotiating a deal with, or it was an athlete I was negotiating a deal with, I mean, we were carving our own path every step of the way. And a lot of what we did is what kind of opened the doors for all these other brands to have influencer partnerships and different brands that they work with. And
because you were educating along your own process of educating yourself, you were now able to educate other people on what the actual business model looked like because you were the pioneer in the space from what you tell me. So it's like then you're sharing information about how the model looks. And sometimes I'm sure you shared information of how somebody could build X, Y, and Z, and then they ran off with it. And so I guess like I do want to take a moment to get into something we talked about in the car earlier, which is kind of like in media and in business and advertising, like the snaking that kind of goes on in the industry and how to deal mentally and also in business with a snaking moment. And do you just live in a world of abundance so you don't care about it? Or how do you deal with a moment like that? You set a boundary, like what's your process with dealing with like intellectual property theft and snaking?
So if you don't understand how to protect your intellectual property, that's on you. You have to learn how to protect your intellectual property. It's as simple as if you don't know how to balance a checkbook, like go learn how to balance a checkbook. Yeah. I mean, there's no white knight that's going to come save us if you don't know how to file a trademark or do the other things. Now, growing up, you don't know what you don't know, and the school system in this country doesn't teach you those types of things to be an entrepreneur. You have to go get coaching, or you have to read books, or you have to do all these other things that are really important to open your brain and your mind to just know how to not repeat the mistakes that have happened in the past.
Or get a coach.
Yeah.
To expedite some of that.
You ever had, do you have siblings?
I'm an only child.
You're an only child?
I'm an only child.
High five.
Yeah. Oh, you are too?
Our parents got it right on the first try.
Yeah. They just, yeah. Let's go. Only child. Let's go.
So,
woo.
There's this experience that older siblings have with younger siblings. That sometimes the younger sibling doesn't want to listen to the older sibling
Yeah.
until they make the mistake themselves, and then they're like, "I should have listened to my older brother, right, or my older sister for whatever it was." Similarly, there's people I try to teach and train, but they're not going to listen until they go through it themselves.
Yes.
Because you just don't have the perspective of understanding why this person's right. Like when our parents were like, "Don't go out after 10 o'clock. Nothing good happens after 10." They were 100% right. Nothing good
100%
happens
right.
after 10. Right? It just doesn't happen. Like there was nothing that helped me in college by staying out and partying. There's nothing that helped me out later in life by staying out and partying. I mean, except the few times I closed a couple deals late night.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you don't gain perspective until you go out there and try. And in a moment of failure, because someone snaked you, you have to take the lesson out of that experience so that it never happens again. This idea of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me.
Shame on me, fool me 3 times.
Fuck the peace sign. Yeah, it's one of those scenarios, right? Like I love you, J. Cole, but the reality is that people.
I was doing George W. Bush, but yeah. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. You don't remember when he did that?
I do. I just prefer the J. Cole reference.
Okay, yes. Okay, go for it.
You know, where he's like, fuck the peace sign, pull out the Glock, and make it rain on you. Maybe he stole it from W. I didn't know.
Maybe he did. I just remember George W. getting on public television like he always did and screwing something up in a line when he thought potato was spelled Potatoe.
Listen, man.
The same day that 9/11 happened. Yeah, continue. Go ahead.
Common sense and cameras being around you. It's something.
Yeah.
So if there's failure, you have to learn to accept it, and the ability to accept failure and to find the lesson in it, and then to protect yourself to be stronger when you come back. I mean, you gotta be the anime character in your story, right? You know these anime characters that like will lose to like a boss. They come back stronger the next time.
Was raised on you were raised on 90s television. I was raised on Toonami every day, 5 p.m. Rushed home after I was in aftercare all day because my parents both worked, and I would watch Dragon Ball Z like literally all night, and then I would try to watch more of Dragon Ball Z, and it's literally the whole concept that out of Tokyo and the whole concept out of Japan at that time was just evolving, constantly evolving, and I think that's part of Dragon Ball Z is a big part of like my age group. I would say 26 to 35. Like it's a big part of us because we watched it. But when Gohan has to defeat Cell and his dad throws him into this situation that he can't handle, but then he evolves to Super Saiyan 2, I could go all day on that. But that is the whole concept, like evolving off of being hurt. The whole part of a Saiyan is that they get stronger. The reason why they're the strongest race in Dragon Ball Z is every time that they lose and they get injured, the more they get injured and the more badly they're wounded to death, they want to fight to the death because if they get closer to death, that's the stronger of a power boost they get after that.
Parallel that to real life.
Yeah.
The more experience that you have and the more times you put yourself out there, the stronger you're going to become as a human being and as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But you have to know and be self-aware of what role player you are in your organization, right? Like if you're Yamcha, you're Yamcha, man. You just got to understand what role you're going to play, right? If you're Krillin, you're Krillin.
Yeah.
But when you understand and you're aware of the role that you play, you also have to learn the lesson in the losses and the wins of how you were supporting or how you could have supported better or whatever it is that you're going through in that journey. Not enough people are aware of what role that they play. There's a lot of Yamchas who think they're Gokus, right? Or Vegetas in this essence. And there's a lot of Bulmas that don't get the flowers that they deserve. Right, and we can talk about Dragon Ball Z all day, as you can tell, right? You were
Let's
like,
go. I was like, oh damn! Like, wait a second,
right.
okay.
Then we can go off canon if you want to.
Yeah,
with like
we go off canon.
The fan art,
yeah,
and stuff.
The Broly movie, but yeah.
But the facts are the facts. There are lessons to be learned in every failure, right? And I actually have a book that's going to come out at some point in 25 called Epoch Failure, and it's this whole idea of the moment at which you become aware of the failure and how to then overcome it, because now you have to go through grief, right? You have to rebuild your confidence. You have to figure out what that lesson is and how to never repeat that mistake again. Because any man who repeats his mistake is a fool. Right?
Yeah,
It's like
100%.
you touch the hot stove and you burn your hand, you're never touching the hot stove again, unless you're a fool. And I mean, that's my lesson, man.
And so dealing with that concept of failure, every entrepreneur, every young man is going to get to the point where he fails at some point, right? And pushing through that. So you've had massive success wins with Shred at this point in your career. You've had a lot of amazing experiences where your dopamine was spiked to a level that you're constantly trying to get to that same level of dopamine and success, right, in your life. And it's a proper chase that we all have, is like chasing that next high, that next big win. And when you have a failure, it brings you all the way down. Yeah. But what's great about that is when your dopamine or your success level goes down, you have a bigger threshold to win again. So even that small win in the next contract can be big to you, right? So explain maybe a loss or a failure that you had that was based off an experience that you learned from, and what was your first step to get to, you know, that first win after that? Like, what was your first win after with what happened? Can you explain kind of a little bit about what happened with your former business and then getting to the next step after that with where you're at now, and kind of explain that journey after Shreds into today?
Yo, Elijah? You awake?
Yeah.
Okay. You're snoring, bro. Yeah. You sure you're awake?
Yeah, I was awake the whole time.
Okay, cool. The cameras are all good?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's all good. We just said a mess. We just said mess.
I
It was like,
was like,
I was just looking at the time, so I thought you guys know.
yeah, 100%.
okay. All right. I heard the snoring. I'm like, yo, I hope he's all right over there in the corner. That's what the heavy AC does.
Makes you sleepy.
All right, so this idea of the life lessons from a moment of loss, a great example for me was GNC. I've talked about this publicly a bunch of different times.
Okay.
It's this thing that was like, this is a milestone that means we made it, right? Getting a supplement company into GNC.
Yeah, that's a big win.
We're at this big convention called the Olympia Convention.
Yep.
It's the Olympians, this big, huge bodybuilding thing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, at Redcon, you know what Olympia is.
Yeah, I know the Olympia, yeah.
So it's the first time I go. It's 2013. We have an 11 booth set up, 10,000 people in line waiting to come to our booth.
Wow.
We literally stole the whole show. Everyone was coming there to talk to us. GNC walks up to our booth, and they're like, hey, man, we would love to have your products in GNC. The team and I are just like, oh, my God, GNC's here. They want us. Let's go make this happen. We go to GNC. The GNC rolls out this whole thing. Should I go into like the details or just?
Yeah, no, I'd love to know details just for myself. I would love to.
So GNC is like, hey, we're gonna put you in like 36 stores. We're just like 36 stores. We're Shreds. Like I just took over the Olympia. What do you mean 36 stores? We're the hottest supplement in the entire world right now. And so like, well, listen, we could do a full, 1,000+ store rollout, 2,300 store rollout, but then you got to do a free fill. I didn't know what a free fill was, and so they're like, well, you got to give us 3 units of every SKU for free. For every store. And then as it sells through, we'll start buying the product to restock the shelves.
Like a consignment deal, essentially, with all of your
No,
products.
not consignment. It's for free. I have to donate product to every single store. So us being overly cocky are like, all right, whatever. That's like 150 grand, 300 grand, whatever we have to do. But like, cool. It will be in every single GNC store. And now we could run social media campaigns of like challenges, like go to your local GNC, post, do this, do that. So, you know what happens? GNC is like, you're not allowed to go into one of our stores to post. We can't bring our athletes. We can't do events. And we're like, yo, something's not making sense. This stuff isn't adding up. 3 months goes by. We got maybe 20 grand in POs, right? But no payments, just more shipments of product. 6 months go by. I'm like, I need to go find out what's going on. I hop on a plane. I go to Pittsburgh. I demand a meeting with GNC. I'm in a round table full of their GNC execs and different people. And I'm like, yo, you need to walk me through my account. Like, why is it that there's not a single payment coming in? We're shipping product to you. What's going on? And they're like, sir, did you read our contract? I'm like, of course I read the contract. They're like, well, there's this thing here that says that if we discount, you have to still pay us full price of the product. But you don't get to choose if we discount the product. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, okay. They're like, well, if we do this or we do that, you actually owe us this. There's a fee for this. There's a fee for that. So here's your invoice. And GNC
No
hands me an
way.
invoice for
They hand
100
you
grand.
an invoice for
And I'm like,
$100,000.
yo, I just lost like 300 grand giving you free product. And now you're giving me an invoice because you guys ran some weird promo. You're not letting us market our partnership or whatever else. Okay, cool. Me being the OCD crazy man I am, I start doing mystery shopper campaigns. I find out that any Shreds customer that goes to GNC, they've had specific training to curve that person to not buy Shreds product, to go buy GNC product instead. So they were just bait and switching our entire audience.
What time period was this? What year was this?
2013, 14.
I worked at GNC in 2013 and 2014. And it's funny that this whole thing with GNC came up because that was my initial sales training. And I remember having Shreds on the shelf, but everything that we were told to do was to push to the GNC lineup. And we had a couple of different products. I forget, it was a blue pill oil-based product for fat burning. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
GNC product?
The GNC product.
Yeah, so it was their total athlete line that they were pushing,
And Shreds was great. I remember everybody was coming in for the Shreds stack. You had a red and a yellow, correct?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
we were
I remember
posting
it.
so heavy, and we were telling everyone to go to GNC and
Yeah.
support this partnership.
Mhm. I remember that. I
So
remember
I'm-
being a part of that.
I'm in the
100%.
whole like
Sorry.
500 grand essentially, right? And so I'm like, all right, well, I now have proof that this whole thing's been a sham. I'm like, all right, slap them with a 100-page lawsuit. GNC's like, listen, we'll return all your product, but then you got to pay us for the, the removing the product. There's a fee for trashing it, whatever. I'm like, listen, guys, you have two choices: throw out all my product, cancel all these invoices, or I'm going to take you to court and ruin your lives. And I will make it my mission on social media to ruin GNC. They're like, all right, you have to sign this paper that says that you're not going to talk about GNC bad on social media and this and the other, and then we'll cancel your invoices and we'll just drop it at the loss. So I had to cut my losses at the 300K or whatever it was for the product. And I had to realize, okay, where did I fail in this? I didn't go get coached on big box retail negotiations from someone who has gone through this and knew the pitfalls and knew how they just totally rape without KY jelly any new brand who thinks that big box retail cares about them.
Wow.
And I specifically call out GNC because they are straight evil. In that room, as they were walking me through the invoice, they were laughing at me.
Wow. That's nuts, man.
Right? So
That's tough.
as a man, you got to take your loss. I went back to the office. I was like, this is the scenario. They played us. My partners blame me for that failure, but because I was in charge of GNC internally and our roles and responsibilities. And
Yeah.
so you got to learn to swallow it, right? So I shifted gears and I had pivoted and I had to come up with a solution, and we started just doing international distribution. The methodology to accept that loss and to continue fighting, you have to recognize that they wanted you and they came after you because there was something that they wanted from you. You were the thing that was special, right? Those guys don't come after you unless there's something special.
Unless
that
you're
trying to
very
steal.
special. Yep.
And that thing that makes you special didn't go away because of that one time that failed. It's going to keep coming back. I might not be in Shreds anymore, and I might have my own marketing agency or whatever else, but the life experiences that I had and the knowledge that I have and the magic that I bring to my relationships are going to propel me to be successful in the future and to keep going.
I love it, man.
And people have to remember, like they talk about this in church. I don't know if you're like a hardcore church guy or not.
Yeah, no,
Obviously,
I'm a Christian. I got my shirt on.
the devil doesn't try to steal something from
Jesus
someone
is
who
king.
doesn't have it. You got to have it for them to try to steal it from you. And you got it once, you can get it again.
Dude, I that is a very powerful story, and I really am excited that we captured that on this podcast because there's a lot to be learned from that. A massive win at a big convention, somebody tempts you, gets you involved with a deal that you don't look at, and it turns into this horrible nightmare of a deal that is just there to be a lesson, and that's part of what we're talking about, overcoming failure and getting to the next step. So I want to do a brief summary, and then I want to go into shotgun questioning right after this, just some fun questions to wrap it up. So explain to everybody what you're doing now, how they can find you and all of that with your coaching and your business. And I want to work with you myself. What are you doing in your business today that can help others?
For sure, man. So I have a superpower of helping people gain market share. And I mean, we've coined this disruption marketing, right? So the whole idea of the $5 Shave Club video that came out and doing all these other great things. So our agency does disruption marketing, social media campaigns, PPC, UGC, CGC, graphics, website design, and that's what we're doing. So anyone who wants to gain market share and needs help finding new customers, retain their customers, or just like be badass, I got you, right? And that's
Great.
what I'm doing. And those are the types of clients that I'm working with. And in addition to that, on a personal level, with my experience now, I have 3 different talks that I'm going around the stages giving. One
Exciting.
One about how I made 125 million and I lost it all. And this is what I learned from the whole process.
Great.
And people can watch me rebuild myself through social media and the journey and everything that I'm sharing.
Love it, man. Love it.
And then the other talks, I mean, one's about AI, because if you don't talk about AI, a stage won't take you these days, right?
Yeah, you have to talk about AI.
And the last one is my infamous Z to A method, which is this whole idea of reverse road mapping. And it's how it's guaranteed me a successful path 100% of the time I've done it.
Well, I'm not going to dive into that because we're going to go into shotgun questioning. But if you want to know more about that, you're definitely going to have to figure out how to get a hold of that, because that sounds like very, very valuable information. I'm going to seek it out. I can't wait to do more business with you and get to know you more after the show. But for shotgun questioning time, do you mind if we do a shotgun questioning segment sponsored by LinkMe?
I mean, LinkMe just hooked me up with this dope profile now. So, I mean, for the people that want to learn more about any of that stuff I just mentioned, LinkMe /Ankur K Garg. I got you with anything you have, but hit me, man.
It's the same as the Instagram, by the way. So it's the same. We base it off of the Instagram, so it makes it very seamless and easy to find them both on LinkMe and Instagram. And we have a process where with him, I meet him, get him a LinkMe. It's in his bio. Check him out. For the show, we really want to have people that already have a LinkMe in their bio, so he qualified because he put it in there today. But shotgun question time. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Coke.
George W. or Al Gore?
Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
George W.
Okay. Very important one. Vegeta or Goku?
Goku.
I'm Vegeta for the
It doesn't mean I
viewers.
don't love Vegeta.
I know. I understand.
Right? You just got to take the W's for what they
But
are.
I think that the best friends ever are ones that are on other sides of that,
For sure.
because that's my best friend is totally a Goku guy. Every video game we ever play, he plays Goku. Next question. Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Okay, I'm a Batman guy, so once again we're on the same page. Same thing. He always plays Superman and whoops my ass in Injustice 2 every time. It's so annoying. Okay, favorite movie?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That's a great movie. Why?
Sometimes you got to stop and smell the roses.
I love this scene where he thinks that he can take the speedometer back
my
in his
God.
dad's car. It's like the best thing ever. He thinks he's going to save the day.
I've tried. I put the car
Yeah,
on
I
the
think
block.
we all-
No, it didn't work. I was like, oh no, Ferris Bueller didn't lie. I thought it was Hollywood. Man.
That's fantastic, dude. That's fantastic. One more question. I have to come up with it. Okay. All right. Tom Cruise or
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise every time? Really?
Yeah,
It's always Tom Cruise? I was going to say
Versus-
Tom Cruise or Leo DiCaprio.
Tom Cruise.
Tom
Leo
Cruise.
dies in every movie. How do you root for a guy who keeps dying?
Yeah. Well, he didn't die in Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay, the one movie. Can you name another movie?
Based
he
off a
doesn't-
true
Can
story.
you name another movie he didn't die?
No, the other guy that dies in every single film is Sean Bean, which I think is fantastic because he's literally in and out. I think that's why they do it, because they want to be in. If it expands and goes further, they don't. Who's the coolest person, or let's say, I don't want to say there's one coolest person because I'm sure you've worked with a lot of really cool people, but for the camera, just show off a little bit. Who was a very cool person that you worked with in marketing, or maybe that you're working with now, in the past, who's somebody very cool that you worked with?
I mean, Eddie Malouf and Ashton Shanks from Bad Marketing. I love those guys.
Oh, my God,
we
yeah.
work on a bunch of different things together. I'm trying to work on more stuff with them together over the years. There's some really huge talents at Netflix and Amazon Prime that I've worked with on a bunch of different things. Gordon Ramsay. That dude is as hard dedicated as
Wow,
a worker
Gordon
as
Ramsay.
anyone,
Really?
right?
Wow.
Roderick Gardner. He's this ex-NFL player who continued to keep his shape and form after playing and launched his own supplement company. This dude is the man. No matter what platform this dude's going to be on, he's going to crush. He's totally got that Mamba mentality down.
I love
Like
that.
everything he
I love
does.
that, dude.
And I mean, yeah, there's some bigger names that I could drop, but
Yeah.
like, George W. Bush. No, I've never worked with George.
George W.
But like, I've worked on political campaigns on both sides. I've done marketing for Bernie. I've done marketing for people in the Trump campaign and like different things. Because I mean, I
Did it for the Donald. Did
a
it for the
poster's a
Donald.
poster, right? Like if
Yeah.
someone wants help with graphics, I got them. Our websites are different things. We're actually one of the few agencies that can run political ads on Meta and like the other different platforms.
Wow. There's a
I'm
qualifier
Indian, right?
for that.
I gotta have every certificate I possibly can.
Have you worked with Vivek? Have you ever talked to Vivek?
So I did have a brief conversation, and as an Indian, I was really excited that there was.
You thought you had a shoe in, right?
Yeah,
You thought,
but then just like every politician, there's
Yeah.
the pros and cons of each person,
yeah.
right? I mean, there's not a soul on earth that doesn't have some type of con associated with them. Even Dave Chappelle and Kevin Hart have bad sides, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, no Diddy. There's people on both ends of whatever it is, right? I mean, there's good people on both sides. I think that's what the saying is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Well, I'm so happy that you came on the show, Ankur, and like it's been a great conversation. Definitely my favorite cast so far, and I can't wait to do more business with you with Link Me and everything that we're up to. So thank you for being on the show,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Seriously, man. Love it. Love it. We're out. All right, cool.